Hey everyone, how you doing? Me,
Managing the mute button.
yeah. All right, let's see. So this is Breakout B, is that right? And we're looking at recommendations 4 through 6.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was great, Julia. Thanks for that presentation.
Oh, good. I'm glad it was helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me throw a link in the chat. I think this is where we're going to take notes. Hope I'm not going off script here with what Layla said, but I think this is where she wants us to be. All right. So I wonder if it's just the 3 of us.
It might be. There are a lot of people in the main session, but...
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, good call. Hi, Danielle. How are you?
Hi, I'm all right. How are you?
Very well, thanks. We'll just give it one more minute here to let people join up. Danielle, can you see the link in the chat, or is it?
Yes,
You
I can see it.
Okay, great.
But any people who will join off the link won't be able to see it because I think the chat starts whenever you join the meeting.
Okay, so I'll repost it once we've gotten a couple other people in. Put it up there. All right. Do you think we should get started? Oh, we got a couple other folks joining in.
I think minutes to figure out where the link was because I stayed in the other window as well, and I heard Leila give instructions on where people could find the link.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know if people realize there are links on the Juno interface itself. I think if you attended the Juno training, you got that update. But if you hadn't been through the training and didn't scroll around, they're kind of at the bottom of the page, so you might not see them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Julia, you are able to see how many people were in the main room there? Oh.
No, well, Ming was posting her count. It was 40 something, I think. So that's what she ended up counting. So it's a pretty good sized group, but people were not necessarily putting their desired groups in the session notes. Now I've lost them.
Okay.
Yeah, so in the attendance list, people were asked to say what breakout they were going to, but very few people have done that. So it's hard to tell who might show up.
All right, great. Well, we can get started. I see that, is it Volker who's asked a question here? Volker, did you want to unmute and ask your question, and maybe we can all answer it together? Oh, here we go. It's a little, I don't know. It's as if you're talking on 4 times speed. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's. Oh, yeah, I think it's still a little choppy. Sorry about that, Volker. We can ask the question for you, and then feel free to try your audio again if you like. So your question was, I'm not familiar in using JSON. Is there a way to add a vocabulary to a JSON schema? Does anyone want to take a stab at that? Or I'm happy to attempt if no one wants to jump right into that.
I'm happy to let you jump right in, or let you make an attempt. So in fact, that would be kind of a question for me too, is I haven't delved deep enough into the actual schema.org implementation to really understand what's involved in adding that external vocabulary. It could be pretty straightforward. It could be that I just need to read through like the science on schema.org guidelines. But if there's a high level overview of what that means to add an external vocabulary,
Sure.
I'd be interested.
Yeah. So, Volker, I think the way to add a vocabulary into any JSON document is to follow, and I'll type it into the chat here so you can look it up, is to look at JSON LD. And JSON LD is just another variant of JSON that sort of allows you to talk about other vocabularies and specify that certain fields within your JSON are related to certain terms in a vocabulary. And the way that you specify those vocabularies is in a section of the JSON called the context. And yeah, so I'm happy to send over some examples of what that looks like. You mentioned JSON schema. I don't know if, so JSON schema is actually a thing where you can define the shape of JSON. I wasn't sure if you meant that technology specifically, or if you just meant, JSON in general. So maybe you could clarify in the comments there. In the meantime, I'll get a link from the scienceonschema.org guidelines to help you look at that. Any other questions here, or okay?
Yeah, Volker did. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, Volker, there's some work being done by Douglas Fills, and I can send you over his GitHub repository there, where he takes JSON LD documents, converts them to RDF, and then uses Shackle to validate. In fact, I think there's some Shackle shapes in the scienceonschema.org repository that might be a good guide there. So I can throw those into the chat.
Is there any work being done, excuse me, on more direct validation tools without that RDA translation? Or is that pretty much what's out there right now, is the translation to something else to do validation?
Yeah, I think because, well, and folks, please correct me if I'm wrong here. I think because the JSON documents can be ordered in any sort of way. Well, you can use JSON LD framing, but I think it's a little restricted in that regard to do actual validation. You can change the shape of a particular document, but I don't know if you can perform like logical expressions on them, like if this, then that. But I'm not positive. Does anyone know the answer to that question? Okay. All right. I'm going to paste a link into scienceonschema.org that has the shackle shapes there.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay. So Graham asks, are there examples? I'm not sure if we're taking notes either.
Oh.
Feel free to drop in.
I don't know if there's an easy way to dump the chat into something, but I'll see if I can figure that out.
Okay, great. Thanks, Julia. So Graham asks, are there examples templates for use in CMS systems such as Django templates for the schema.org markup to get the structure right without needing to rebuild it yourself from the documentation? Good question. I don't know of any Django templates specifically, but maybe others here can comment. Okay. I think, Graham, that there's a couple links off the scienceonschema.org page that points to other templates. So for example, if you have ISO metadata records, there's an XSLT transform from those ISO metadata records, but I'm not sure of anything in Django at the moment.
Yeah, we did the schema.org markup in our catalog records. That's in Django. That was done by a to kind of get into the Google dataset search, and that was fairly successful. But I know there are some problems with what we've got, and it doesn't do anything that's too fancy. So it's kind of like it. I'm happy to kind of share what we've done, but I was wondering if anybody else had any experience already. That's what I was trying to find out.
Yeah. Graham, I don't know if you feel like posting a GitHub issue or over at scienceonschema.org, but that might be another way to reach out to folks that aren't here at RDA.
Okay, cheers.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Okay, so I think we're supposed to comment on these recommendations, get feedback on them. I don't know if I can share screen. Is that a thing? Share desktop? Okay, I can share screen. We can do that. How about an application window? Can we do that?
I think it does have that option, or at least has Chrome tabs. I can't remember about. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, great. Can you all see this first record? Are you seeing recommendation 4? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, great. So Julia, you commented on this one during your presentation that this wasn't an activity that you folks necessarily wanted to or were ready to tackle yet. But did you have thoughts here on this specific recommendation and things that we might want to tweak here?
I don't have thoughts on the wording that's in the recommendation. It kind of goes back to the question I asked just a few minutes ago, which is just needed to learn how to do it or becoming more fluent in schema.org. So I think there are grades of how much you want to do. So what we've done is kind of the minimal necessary markup. But then as you want to have more information there for better discovery searching, I don't know if there's examples of people going beyond discovery to more detailed data information in their searches. But I'm guessing that's where you're going to have to add those vocabularies because there's only so much you can do without a domain-specific reference in there.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that it says as necessary is good. I haven't looked at the document enough to know if there's places to adjust the wording to imply that there's a minimal amount you need to do, and then everything else on top of that gets you more and more.
Okay, great. Anyone else want to comment on? Sorry, I guess I shouldn't need to leave it there. On trying to incorporate external vocabularies, or maybe someone could even just chime in on whether they use external vocabularies right now, and if so, any identified challenges with potentially adding this into your markup.
I've just had a quick look at that the GitHub repo that you mentioned, Adam, and it does look like the full example there does give some sort of examples of how to do it. And knowing how we've got our metadata structured in our catalog, it shouldn't be too difficult to make use of some of the vocabs to kind of go into the fields. So I think it's fairly easy. I think it's just whether or not putting one thing, whether or not anybody's going to recognize it. What are the accepted vocabs to use? I think that's my question.
Yeah.
Is it accepted or not? Because we could kind of probably fill whatever we want into those fields. It's just a template at the end of the day. But if nobody's able to, is ready to kind of pick those up the other end. So is there a list of accepted vocabs?
Not to my knowledge, to be honest with you. We hosted Dan Brickley and Natasha Noy from Google at a meeting in January, and they admitted, at least at Google, that while they harvest that information, there's not really a good use case for them yet at this stage. Maybe that'll change in the future as they see some conformance to same vocabularies. I'm not sure. The places where I have heard it being maybe a little bit more useful than at Google is at a place maybe like Data One, where they're a domain specific harvester. And so I think when you get into more domain specificity, it's easier for communities to converge there. But I agree with you, Graham. It's really hard to specify or to see the value without being any harvester use cases, really.
It's the classic chicken and egg situation, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you put it in, people then may build stuff, but you think, well, what do I put in until I know what's going to be picked up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, maybe one thing we could do here is, if folks have external vocabularies that they use now, if we could just list out what domain you're from and what vocabularies you use, maybe that might be helpful. I'm not sure. What do you folks think?
Are you on that recording?
That's true.
I'm kind of hesitant about do on that particular doc there, because that's all the recommendations. Do you want us to scroll down to the bottom of that and put a section there?
Yeah, that'd be good here. This is a working document, so I think that should be fine, honestly. Yeah. So maybe right here we'll add our notes.
Notes in the session, RDA session notes too. But if you have something really specific to the recommendations, seems like a reasonable thing to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Maybe I'll just throw a bookmark in there and we can get that in the chat. Copy that. There we go. Excellent. I don't want to call you a chinchilla, but that's the name that I see typing. So rock on, chinchilla. That's great. All right, Julie, I'm sorry. Do you remember how much time we have in the breakout? I want to make sure that people that join get to talk about what they were interested in.
I don't know, but the window is telling us we have 19 minutes left.
Okay.
Hopefully
okay, great.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's move on to recommendation 5. We can always circle back. Just want to make sure we cover everything to give people an opportunity to chime in. All right. Recommendation 5 says consistently implement markup syntax. So clearly this is, relevant to whatever, markup language you're using. Did anyone have something that they wanted to share on this topic? Maybe challenges or updates for the recommendation that's made here? And I'm not sure if there's anything in the chat. I've got the window on the document here, so I'm not able to monitor there. So help me out here if I'm missing things.
Oh, Danielle tells us, yes, that timer is accurate and the breakout will automatically close when the countdown reaches 0.
Okay. Oh, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not sure there's too much to pick out or pick apart here in this particular recommendation. So maybe we can move on to the next one if folks prefer to talk about that one, and then we can always come back if folks have a spark. All right. Let's see. Oh, there's lots of interesting. So I might add, just to let folks stew on this a little bit, is that at least within schema.org, there's a little bit of idiosyncrasy with the structure of some of their fields. So looking at the geo coordinates just reminded me of that. Specifically, the way that they want you to represent a bounding box has a strange format, maybe to some who are in the geosciences. So if that sparks any thoughts or things that you want to contribute, we can always come back to this particular recommendation. Okay.
Sorry,
Oops.
I was just looking at, yeah, I just want to say, I was looking at the examples in the recommendation, and whilst I appreciate what the recommendation is for, the examples are just imply use correct syntax rather than be consistent. I mean, applying correct syntax is also part of consistency,
Yeah.
but the way I was reading the actual recommendation was to use fields consistently, because some of the what's called suboptimal examples, to me, as the person who uses JSON-LD, is they're just wrong, and they wouldn't validate if you actually tried to validate your JSON-LD. So
yeah,
I feel like maybe that there could be some better examples. I don't necessarily have any to suggest, but it sort of seems to be more like a guide to correctly using JSON-LD rather than including wrong things. Like you wouldn't have an array without closing brackets.
yes, right. So maybe this is more specific to the markup that you're implementing, right? And then following that specifically. Is that your point? Sorry, I couldn't catch who was saying that. I apologize. Was that Danielle?
It was Danielle, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And yes, that was what I was trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very good point. In fact, like even the capital L is probably wrong. So, you know, I don't know. Yeah, let's just take a note of that at the bottom of this recommendation.
So the summary is basically correct versus consistent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that right, Danielle?
Sorry, I keep having to turn my mic off because I've got quite a lot of background noise because there's two of us in the room. But yes, I mean correct versus consistent.
Yeah. Okay.
And the example be more covering correct form rather than consistent usage.
Yes. Okay.
So to me, consistency would be ensure you always include. I know Schemaorg doesn't have required fields, but has recommended fields. Include the ones that are strongly recommended, and you know do that consistently rather than ensure that your syntax is correct. That to me is a given, perhaps naively.
Please, let's go back to the main room. Thank you.
Oh wow. Okay.
Oh.
All right. I guess we're heading back. Thanks everyone for your time. We'll see you in the main room here.